What a weather pattern we've got shaping up. What a run of the Euro weeklies. What a cold air outbreak on the way. And you could even throw in what an active space weather period that we're in. Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about on this Friday. My name is Jason. I've been tracking the weather for over 4 decades. And yeah, some of that was when I was very little. But hey, don't judge. It's a judgment free zone here, folks. But I'm glad that you're here with me. Welcome into the channel. We've got a lot to get into. And we're going to start right here with the latest run of the Euro weeklies. Yeah, friends, we're going to have some fun today and keep it kind of low key. I've got a few things that are interesting to show you. Of course, we're going to start here by taking a look at some longer range data that takes us into December. And then we're going to switch gears and talk about that trough and big cold weather and snow event that's coming to parts of the central and eastern U.S. over the weekend and early next week. We've also got to talk a little bit about severe weather. Yeah, it's back in the picture, and you need to be aware of it. It's not going to be a big deal, but certainly if you live in the Ohio and Tennessee valleys, parts of the southeast, you need to just be aware of it. And then, of course, we'll wrap things up with space weather because the sun is up to some mischief, which you know if you've been watching this channel. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button below. We're on our way to 7,000 and eventually 10,000 and 50 and 100,000 subscribers, folks. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for all the support. Hit the like button if you like the content and leave a comment. Let me know where you're commenting from. If there's anything I can be in prayer about, please put it in the comments section and pray for me and this channel as well. And certainly all of that helps YouTube push the channel out and grow it. So thank you for helping me grow together. What we're looking at right here, we're going to start with this. This is the European Weekly Control Run. Well, what is that? It's the snowfall map, by the way. Of course, if you haven't figured that out already. Well, the European, just like the European ensembles that go out to about 2 weeks, the European weeklies go out to 46 days, and they're based on a control run. So the European is run at a low resolution out through that time period, and then the initial conditions of the atmosphere are tweaked and the model is rerun, and then they're tweaked and it's rerun again. And so you get all of these different models with just slightly different initial conditions in the atmosphere. And then all that gets run out to 46 days. All of that's based off the control run, which is just one singular run, and that's what we're looking at here. Obviously, as you could discern, an 1,104-hour snow map is not real. This is not going to play out this way, but it's fun to look at, and it's Fun Friday, and I wanted to show it to you, so I wanted to put that context around it. We're going to look at the mean of all of those runs here in just a second, and that'll give us a much better idea of what reality might look like. But the European control is interesting in that it shows cold air penetrating fairly far to the south with opportunities for snow, and that could be the case, although this map is not going to turn out the way it shows here. Okay, so just know that with context. This is also the European controls depiction of 850 millibar temperatures. The temperature's about a mile off the ground, and you can see scale breaking pink. Here's the scale down here, -20, so it's greater than -20 below average when we're looking out here around Tuesday, December the 16th. Wouldn't that be something? Well, this is, again, the control run. We'll take a look and see what the mean temperature looks like, but in any event, this is unlikely to verify exactly like this. But the European ensemble suite is seeing some cool air as we get on into December itself. So it's interesting and worthy of note. And so or noteworthy is another way to say that. In any event, here is the mean, all of the runs averaged together out to December the 22nd. So we've got a lot of snow in Canada, which we would expect and hope to see if we want to see cold air blasting into the United States. Certainly some snow cover across the northern tier. That seems reasonable. Even a signal for some snow fairly far to the south. Okay, this is the mean average of all the members. And so interesting that we're seeing a good looking mean. Sometimes we see a mean that has hardly any snow on it. So this is encouraging, even though it may be a little overdone. I don't know. We'll see. In any event, here is the 500 millibar pattern. This is a 7-day average. We're looking at the current state of the atmosphere. Big reds up here in northern Canada around Greenland. This is blocking. This is good. This is something we want to see in the East Coast in the wintertime. This helps keep the storm track farther south, keep the cold air farther south, and keep snow farther south. Okay, so this is what we would want to see, and this is what is showing up. And we've got a big ridge out west, which is something we'd also want to see, and big trough in the east. This is cool weather in the east. That's where we're starting, and that's what we've got. That's reality. That's what we're going to see this weekend. As we're going out toward middle of November, look at this. The European weekly see a big ridge setting up in the east, and that's consistent with some of the longer range guidance here that we're seeing in the GFS ensembles and European ensembles and the Canadian ensembles. and a little bit of a signal for troughing remaining here in the northeast as we go on out into the middle part of November, and also along the west coast too. As we go on out toward the end of November, look at this. Ridge migrates to the east, and now we're warm in the east as we approach the end of November, a little cooler in the west. And up here in Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, you guys are about average or maybe a little cooler. But look at this signal for blocking up here still in Greenland. Can you see that? That is good. That is continuing to stay there. We've got higher heights up here, so that is a continued signal for blocking. And as we get on out toward December, the first week of December, we've got troughing signal moving back to the U.S. or the eastern U.S. and ridge going up out west, sending Arctic air coming out of Canada that would be coming down this way and potentially keeping us quite cool here in the northern plains and into the east. And there we have just that continued signal for ridging and blocking up here in Canada, and everything kind of gets muted a little bit as we go on out in time, as we get on in toward the middle part of December, but we still have a signal for ridging out west, troughing along the east, and potentially blocking up here in northern Canada. That would be good news as we get on out into a colder period of the year to keep the storm track south and maybe pick up some snow. So interesting times ahead potentially as we get into December. That's the latest run of the weeklies. Here's the mean 850 temperature map. This is the current state of the atmosphere right now. It's a 7-day average, and as we go on out in time, look how November warms up in the east, cools down in the west. We get on into the end of November, starting to get into December, and you see those cool anomalies working across the north and eventually settling into the east as we get into the first week of December. And then that just sort of remains that way through the middle part of December into the end of the run. You get more cold anomalies building back to the north and west, and then the warmer anomalies up here in Canada, presumably because of blocking, which would help to kind of disturb the stratosphere as well, keep that vortex weak, and allow a storm track that could potentially penetrate farther south into the U.S. And that's what we're looking at with the longer range. Of course, over a 7-day time period, you don't see all those greens and purples and pinks showing up. But this gives you a good idea of what the European weeklies at least see in the pattern as we head toward December. So hopefully that helps give you something to enjoy as we get into the weekend. Now we're going to take a look at the current weather that's coming up and look at that trough, cold weather, and snow potential in parts of the central and eastern U.S. as we get into the weekend. Even though we have a government shutdown, the drought monitor will still be operational, and you can see that it is very operational and very brightly colored with beautiful fall colors, but this is not a beautiful outcome. We've got lots of reds and deep reds and oranges and yellows. That means dry and drier and drought conditions. As you would guess, the deeper the red colors, the more severe the drought, and you can see a lot of folks in the western U.S. across the southern tier, even into the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes in the northeast, experiencing very, very dry conditions. So it's been a dry period. Even Micronesia's got a little bit of a dry signal. Hawaii, very dry. Alaska, you're looking pretty good. But that's what's going on over the next 2 weeks. We've got a little bit of a higher or a signal for higher rain amounts across parts of the Pacific Northwest and into the West Coast, and especially up in the higher elevations as the flow comes in off the west. We're continuing to see a storm track that pushes energy into the West Coast and create rain situations for you all, and those mountains just squeeze that out. So you could see several inches of rain in the mountains out here. Of course, the Great Lakes up into the northeast is where the signal is for the best signal is for rain as well, back into the Tennessee Valley too. And not looking at bucket loads of rain, but some rain will help a little bit, but we definitely need more rain than this. But that's what we're looking at over the next couple of weeks. If we take a look at the general pattern, we're starting out here. Look at that big trough. Boom, there it comes as we get on into Sunday and Monday, and just smashes the east with cold temperatures, but it's a kind of a quick hitter, just a couple of day cold shot. Then it pulls up to the north, got the big ridging continuing to stay on the west coast, blocking you guys for a little bit with some of that energy kind of deflecting it off to the north, but that gives way, and then a trough moves into the west, bringing more rain out there. We continue to see a troughing signal across the northeast U.S. through this period. We'll get a ridge building into the center portion of the country, kind of keeps the Gulf closed for business, so we're not looking at a lot of moisture coming in out of the Gulf, but got that trough continuing to hang on up here in the northern and eastern portion of the country. And the European ensembles just kind of keep that troughing signal there until we get way on out here toward the end of the run. And then it builds that ridge and kind of backs it back to the center portion of the country again, but reverts to kind of a zonal flow. My expectation is we'll continue to see activity in the pattern. So we'll see an active weather pattern, particularly out west. You'll see bouts of rain, and then those will dampen out as they meet that ridge in the center portion of the country, maybe amplifying a bit back into the northeast, bringing some rain and some snow where it's cold enough up there. But maybe along the east coast, we have a little bit of a period of above normal, but it doesn't look like an all-out torch by any stretch of the imagination, at least right now. Hey, there's Weather Bell. Weather Bell's doing good today. And here we go. Look at that. Here's the temperature anomaly map, and I've run that ahead, but let's back it up so you can kind of see how this plays out. So temperature-wise, we're looking at chilly weather coming in big time as we get through the weekend into early next week. This is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then we've got warm weather coming into the southwestern portion of the country, another trough in front working into the northwest as we get on into Friday, November the 14th. So the hits just keep on coming for you folks in the northeast. Friends in the western portion of the country, we're not seeing any sign of winter anytime soon. Look at these big bright oranges and reds out here. That is well above normal as we get into the middle portion of November. We extend that into the southeast a bit. And then, of course, more troughing potentially for the northern and eastern portion of the country, keeping us a little cooler up there. And finally, maybe by the end of the run, some of these anomalies won't push toward the east. The weeklies will suggest that as we get to middle and end of November, we're seeing a little bit of a warmer signal out here. But the latest run of the European ensembles kind of keep us chilly and below normal in the northeast and portions of the east coast as well. The GFS is a little bit of a different story. It brings that big cold shot in. Here it comes. And then this is the GFS ensembles, by the way. We get those additional follow-on shots into the northeast, and out west you're staying warm as we get into the middle of November. And it just keeps the cool weather coming to the northeast, kind of like the European ensemble did. Keeps the warm weather punched out east into the central plains eventually. But look what happens. That kind of dissipates, and we get another big shot of Arctic air by the end of the run. So mixed signals in the long range. My lean is that we get a little bit warmer as we head toward middle of November, and then toward the end of November, and then we see the cold come back in December. The GFS might be a little bit overdoing this. The European AI, just for fun, we'll take a look at it. It kind of agrees with the GFS. There's the big cold shot coming in, and then another follow-on shot in the northeast next week, and the next weekend, big warm punch, and then look what happens. It sort of dissipates that as well and brings another big Arctic blast in. So the European AI model is actually in agreement with the GFS. So who knows? Maybe we'll avoid the big warm up in the east, but in any event, it doesn't hurt us too bad to be warm this time of year in the east. We need the cool weather in December and January when we can get snow. We take a look at the surface map over the next couple of days, give you an idea of what's going on. We've got that cold front coming in, the storm system moving through the Great Lakes, looking for storms to pop in the Tennessee Valley this afternoon and evening. You can see those kind of pop up there, bringing a severe weather threat along with those tornadoes possible, but not all that likely, hail and wind as well. That will move off. Some of the models try to get in here on Sunday and develop more thunderstorms, but the European kind of keeps things dry, and then additional energy moving through the lakes. This is the leading edge of the energy that's bringing the Arctic front in. That'll come through, sweep in, drop the hammer down on the cold temperatures, and of course, Great Lakes. You guys are going to see some lake effect snow up there, snow in the southern Appalachians, all the way into the central Appalachians, into the northeast as well. And some models break some snow out into the Piedmont sections of North Carolina, coastal plain, even into Virginia. Kind of not sure that that'll happen that way, but that's what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks, or the next, we'll call it 7 days here. That's why I was showing you. If you take a look here at the Storm Prediction Center, there's your slight risk of severe weather. Middle portion of Tennessee, middle portion of Kentucky, with a marginal risk around that for isolated weather that could produce some wind damage, something like that. But we're looking at mainly a tornado threat, wind threat, and a hail threat. Hail is not so big, so much of a threat. Wind's kind of the primary threat here. And what we're looking at is shortwave energy moving to the north. Some questions about destabilization this afternoon. Is the atmosphere going to get all that unstable? Some models say kind of yeah, and some models kind of no. So we've got some competing factors. It'll be cloudy. Dew points will come up, but you've got some warm air in the mid-level. So really could see a little bit of a shear environment set up and enough destabilization to organize some of these thunderstorms into line segments. That would be where we'd find the severe weather. Again, not a great big tornado threat, but just something to be aware of in the southeast, deep south here in the Tennessee Valley again. And then as we get on into Sunday, the threat, it kind of shifts to the eastern portions of the southeast and upper Florida. So be aware you could have an isolated severe thunderstorm or two. Again, some models are not showing much activity at all. The European keeps us kind of dry. So that's what's going on in terms of the sensible weather. Now we're going to take a look at the snowfall potential with this system coming in. I'm going to start by taking a look at snowfall over the center portion of the country over the next couple of days, and we'll roll this out into the evening hours overnight tonight. You see the storm system moving out of Canada, bringing the leading edge of that Arctic air and energy with that, producing some snowfall over North Dakota predominantly, but some mood flakes making it here into Minnesota, even over into the UP of Michigan. Could see an inch or two up there, but certainly out toward Bismarck, maybe an inch of snow to just put us in the mood for the season, right? So there we go as we get on in towards Sunday morning and see snow breaking out here in the Midwest, and of course over into the Great Lakes area. If we take a look at what this looks like for the east, not much going on outside of northern Maine. Maybe you pick up an inch of snow over the next 24 hours up in northern Maine as we get on in towards Saturday morning, not much going on. And then if we get to Saturday afternoon, overnight Saturday, you see things really starting to fire up in terms of the snowflake making department here across the northern tier of this eastern U.S. into Wisconsin and UP of Michigan, back in toward Michigan itself, and then up into Canada and the northern portion of the northeast as we get on in toward the overnight hour Sunday. And then we start to pick up some northerly flow here, wringing some moisture out. It's not going to be a lot of moisture with this system. It's just unfortunate the way the trough's oriented, but we're going to pick up some snow here in the southern Appalachians up in West Virginia, and that'll increase through the day on Monday and then into the overnight hours Monday night as we get into Tuesday morning. Look at this. Overnight Monday could see a few flakes up here in the Piedmont and eastern sections of Virginia, Maryland, the Delmarva region. Not looking at a lot of snow, but maybe you see a few flakes up there. Some models want to bring it down here into North Carolina. We'll look at one of those in a second. But there you go. Strip of snow from Indiana, northern Indiana, up towards South Bend, back through Columbus and Cincinnati, and over toward West Virginia to Charleston. Looking at some snow over here, folks. So that's a pretty decent little pickup there. 1 to 2, maybe even 3 and 4 inches in spots. Got some lake effect snow happening. GFS is not quite as enthusiastic as with as much snow. Certainly it shows nothing here east of the Alps. The reason for that is it sort of splits the energy in the trough, takes a piece to the north and a piece to the south. European keeps it more consolidated, helping to wring out that moisture better. So not really looking at much there. The Canadian has that little strip of snow east of the Alps, but over here a little bit north in Virginia toward DC and back in toward Maryland and places in toward Delaware here. And so not really looking at a whole bunch of snow, but certainly along the Alps, it's going to be pretty up there in the higher country. And the icon has a little bit of snow here in the eastern coastal plain of North Carolina. Not really expecting to see a lot of that, but you can't rule it out. So a couple of models are showing that. We'll get into the short range guidance here in the next day or so, and we'll start to see what the NAM and the HRR and the rapid refresh have to show. But right now the icons, had a few models on and off showing this, but the icon's the only one left showing snow over here in the coastal plain and portions of the Piedmont. So we'll watch and see, but certainly if you're in the higher elevations of the Appalachians, you're certainly going to pick up some of the white stuff over the next couple of days. That's that for the snow. Let's take a quick look at in space and see what's going on up here, folks. We still have CMEs to contend with, as well as big sunspots, and the big one that's been causing some problems is facing us over the next 48 hours. There it is, right up here on the surface of the sun. You can see the big bright spots and a lot of brightness coming around as well, indicating more sunspots. And as sunspots rotate around, they have the potential to shoot solar flares in our direction, which can launch CMEs, coronal mass ejections, plasma coming out of the sun, and it's high impacting solar wind, and that comes toward the Earth. And if it's polarized correctly or magnetized the right way, it can really interfere with the magnetic field. Lately, the last burst that hit us was magnetized to the north, which sort of deflects us. If magnetism points toward the south, then that could couple with the magnetosphere and really put us into a strong geomagnetic storm conditions if the solar wind is high enough. And you can see on the coronagraph, we had a little bit of a burst, a little bit of a CME, sort of a minor one, probably associated with this M-class solar flare. But we can see we've been in minor geomagnetic storm conditions. Nothing going on right now, all that worrisome, but we're going to keep our eye on this big sunspot. It could shoot off a big flare at any time. There it is. You can see it's magnetically complex, big positives, big negatives, all intermixed, and it's very large. Look at that thing. It looks like a big cancer cell. Here's the full disk, and you can see another region coming in along with a couple of others around the disk that you can't see. And so that's what's going on upstairs. We're going to continue to watch that and keep our eyes on it. We could see Aurora over the next several days as well. If you look here just today and tonight, certainly some chance of Aurora being visible above this red line here across the northern tier. Tomorrow, the chance of Aurora is a little bit lesser, but any kind of big impacts to the magnetosphere from a solar wind stream or a coronal mass coronal mass ejection could certainly increase the chance of aurora view, maybe even some communications blackout. So we're going to watch that with all of the activity on the sun, and we've seen some big CMEs go across the back or go off the back side of the sun, which is good news. 93.5% is the brightness of the moon. It's a waning gibbous on its way down to full moon or new moon on the 20th of November. So that's what's going on up in space. And that's what's going on at the Earth, folks. I'm glad you're here with me today. Thanks for joining me. Not really anything going on the earthquake or volcanic front to worry about, so didn't show that today. But I will be back tomorrow morning with another episode. In the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful Friday. Thanks again for being with me today, and I sincerely appreciate all the support. Hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, everybody, and God bless. We'll see you back soon.